and welcome to the Monday Morning Marketing Podcast. I'm Esther.
And I'm Melanie.
And today we're talking about buyer persona or your client profile. What is it? Why should you have one? And how detailed should it be?
Other people also refer to it as avatars, although I've never got that. I just think giant blue people when I hear that.
Me too. But it is important that sort of gives it a visual image of, although I don't expect any giant blue people would really want to buy from any service, really.
No, let's not go there, okay? Anyway, moving on. Yes, a client profile, or whatever you want to call it, is a way of you visualizing your audience, not who particularly will buy from you necessarily from the first moment they meet you, but how you can visualize each person through each step of the journey to eventually purchasing from you.
Yeah, definitely. And there are some people out there that would say, and I'd be one of them, give it a name, give the person a name. You just draw a little picture, even if it's a stick figure, because I can't draw, but give the person a name. Yeah, that's why I have a graphic designer. But give the person a name, okay? So if your audience is female, married, in their late 30s, I'm talking about Melanie and myself, if you want to sell to us. I'm being kind to you, Melanie. Stop laughing. What, call the person, call the stick figure Melanie, call the stick figure Esther, call the stick figure, Sandra, give her a name. If she is married with 2 kids, again, you're talking about myself and Melanie. Living on the island of Ireland, you're talking about myself and Melanie. All these different things. We're open to buying stuff as well. So what would you sell us and how would you do it? You need to have that visual in your mind of who it is that you're selling to. You're not selling to a screen, okay? There's somebody behind the screen that will be buying.
Now, it's not just what they look like, but what kind of things that they do as well. Are they following sports? Would they be doing crafting or DIY? Or what kind of Facebook pages and other channels would they like or buy from? Would they be buying gardening magazines? Would they be fitness or sport fanatics? That sort of thing.
Yeah, and if your products and services are time sensitive, is there a certain time of the year that they would be looking for these products? Father's Day, Mother's Day, Christmas, Valentine's Day, those sort of things are very time sensitive. Other products and services can be sold at any time of the year, but they may be more apt or your buyer persona, your Esther, your Melanie, your Sandra might be looking for them over the summer. They might be looking in September when the kids go back to school. They might be looking in January when, with the Christmas blues. What are they thinking?
Exactly. Knowing what they're thinking is half the solution, to be honest. I would describe it as the 5 W's. What problem do you solve? Who would purchase your solution? Why would they purchase it from you? Where could they purchase it from? So is it online or in a shop? And the really hard one is when they're going to purchase it, because you have to get people at the right time, to purchase it. And that's why we were talking about, is it a specifically time-sensitive period? Is it for babies? Is it for pregnant women? Is it for kids with spots? It's the when that's the problem. And a lot of people think, well, if I put it out at the right time, I'll catch them at the right time. But with social media, there is no particular right time, especially if most of us have businesses that have global audiences. So there's no specific right time anymore. So it's trying to get your information out there at the right time and answering all these questions. And that's essentially the bottom end of a client profile.
Yeah, and we've been talking recently on the podcast about reading your analytics and how to understand who's looking at your products and services. That goes a long way to discovering who your ideal client is. But if the people who are looking at your social media platforms are not buying from you, then they might not be your ideal clients. So you might be targeting women in their late 30s. You might be targeting mothers of 2 when your real audience is single women with no kids in their early 20s who are, looking for your products and services. Hone in on what it is that you're selling, who has the money to buy it.
Money, definitely.
If it's a high-end product, it's limited basically in the number of people who can afford it. If it's a low-end product, it's cheap, less than €10, $10, £10 sterling, then more people can buy it. But are they going to buy more of them, or is it a one-time purchase? All of these things you have to take into consideration before you hone in on your client profile or your buyer persona.
I mean, at the end of the day, we're talking about people that have already got social media platforms or Google Analytics that they can refer to. These are, or they've been in business and already have a picture. They've actually met their audience. But you really struggle when you're starting up. You've got to envisage who your audience is.
You do.
And I totally sympathise, because I was in the same boat when I first started. I'm sure you were, Esther, as well.
Definitely.
And you can get an idea just by having a clue, essentially, at the beginning. But truthfully, when you first start up, it is very much trial and error. And that's why measuring your analytics is even more important then, because you can see who's coming over to your pages, interacting with you, who's actually buying from you. You can ask them questions. How did you hear of me? What was it about my offering that you liked? You can actually find out from your current new audience what brought them over and where they were in the buying cycle.
Yeah, but it's also important to remember that even though you've been running for a year, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, you can still change your buyer persona, pivot, move it around, change what you're selling, what you're offering. And, if you've been selling your product or service for less and you want to move up into charging more, then you're going to have to change who it is that you're going to be targeting as well.
Yeah.
All of that has to change.
I mean, we all have to think of pivoting. Certainly, once or twice in our careers, I've had to pivot. I changed. I rebranded a few years after I started, and it was so essential for me to do. I'm so glad I did it. It made a huge change to my business. But by pivoting, I had to relook at my audience again.
Yeah. The same thing happened to us. We rebranded, did the same, pivoted, and again, we have benefited from it. But when people start out, they sort of say, oh, well, my services are for anybody, or anybody could buy my product that I have. But you're not everybody's cup of tea.
No, absolutely not. And I mean, the majority of people that I would see would be female. I speak to men as well for training, but it would be mostly women. Most of them would be over 35, and a lot of them, certainly when I first started my business in 2013, I was seeing them because unfortunately we were going through quite a mad depression here in Ireland, and they were all being made redundant, and they were having to start up their own cottage industries, having to pivot or start again. And where they were previously, they weren't doing their social media, they weren't managing their businesses because they were employed. And so that's where I got my first audience, essentially, in times of a depression.
Yeah, and that could happen to businesses now, coming out of coronavirus, COVID-19.
Yeah.
We could also be seeing a lot more businesses going online and needing to generate their own buyer persona or change their buyer persona because the liquidity isn't there, the money isn't there to buy your high-end products. How can you stay afloat at this time and moving forward? What is it that you're going to be offering?
So I think if you're listening to this today, it doesn't matter when it is, during or post-corona virus, have a think. Is it time you re-looked at your actual audience, the people you're targeting, and create a proper current persona? It does change, sometimes annually, depending on your products and services. And especially if you're thinking of pivoting or you're creating new services or products now, because you have to. So please do rethink today. What can you do? What's your audience going to look like? Give them names. What kind of things are they doing outside of work? How are they getting their money in? And how can they find you?
Yeah. And let us know how you get on with that, because all of this with your buyer persona will help with your Facebook ads, which we'll be talking about in a couple of weeks. And we'd love to hear from you on how you're getting on. And if you have any questions about your buyer persona, or you want us to help you out with anything, do get in touch with us. You'll find us on all social media platforms and our website, themondaymorningmarketing.com. Have a good day, guys.
Bye for now.